Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So, very excited today because we're going to be doing one of my favorite videos to film every single year. I love January because I get to film my top list and my most anticipated list, and then I kind of, if there's enough, I'll do a second most anticipated in like June for the later half of the year. But I'm really excited because we're going to dive into my most anticipated horror and thriller reads of 2023. What's going to be fun about this time is I actually haven't read that many of these synopses of these novels this time because I pretty much found authors that I really like or I'm really interested in reading more from, saw that they had new releases, and then kind of add them to this list. So it's going to be really fun to do like a little deep dive into what these upcoming novels from authors that I really do enjoy or have heard a lot about have in store for us. So the way that this list was put together is over the year I've been making notes of authors that have books that are coming out this year that I'm really excited about. And then Tor Nightfire used to have a blog where every year they would list an entire master list of novels coming out from horror and thriller writers for the entire year. The person who runs that list is actually leaving Tor Nightfire, I believe. So they have their own blog now. I believe it's called like Jump Scare Reads. If I can remember what it is, I'll post it down below so you guys can check that out. Super, super helpful. I really, really love that list. So I definitely pulled some of the titles from there, but not all of them. Some I found through authors' Instagrams. Some have just been rumored. I don't have like full release dates yet. So we're going to talk all about that. But let's start off with books that I know are being released that have release dates, and I can give you guys a full synopsis of what they are about and why I'm interested in reading them. So first up is Gothic by Philip Fracassi, and that will be coming out on, it doesn't have a set date yet according to Goodreads, but it will be coming out in February of 2023 and is released by Cemetery Dance Publications. So Philip Fracassi is an author I have yet to read yet, but I've heard nothing but amazing things. I just got his novel, A Child Alone with Strangers, which is extremely highly rated on Goodreads. I think it has over 4 stars. Gothic so far has a 4.27 rating, but I'm assuming those are just book reviewers who got early editions. But I am very, very excited to read that because I've just heard so many great things from this author, and I just really want to start reading some of his work. And the only reason I haven't read A Child Alone with Strangers yet is because I got it right before the holiday, so I just haven't had a chance to read it yet. But it should be one of the next books on my list for this year. Okay, so the synopsis for Gothic, and these are all going to be synopses I pull off of Goodreads, just so you guys know. It says, on his 59th birthday, Tyson Parks, a famous but struggling horror writer, receives an antique desk from his partner, Sarah, in the hopes it will rekindle his creative juices. Perhaps inspire him to write another best-selling novel and prove his best years aren't behind him. A continent away, a mysterious woman makes inquiries with her sources around the world, seeking the whereabouts of a certain artifact her family has been hunting for centuries. With the help of a New York City private detective, she finally finds what she's been looking for. It's in the home of Tyson Parks. Meanwhile, as Tyson begins to use his new desk, he begins acting strange, violent. His writing more disturbing than anything he's done before, but publishers are paying top dollar, convinced his new work will be a hit, and Tyson will do whatever it takes to protect his newfound success. Even if it means the destructions of the ones he loves, even if it means his own sanity. Oh, that sounds so fun. I believe I read the synopsis for this like months ago when this was first being talked about and posted all over Cemetery Dance. I love this concept. It reminds me a little bit of Kill Creek. I like kind of the inception of like horror writers and horror novels. I think that's really, really fun. So excited for that. Okay, next up is Looking Glass Sound by Catriona Ward. I read Sundial in 2022, and I read The Last House on Needless Street in 2021. I enjoyed both of those books. I have yet to read Little Eve, which was her later 2022 release. I've heard it's great, though. I am planning on getting to that very soon, but I have realized that I do enjoy Catriona Ward's writing style. It's very fast-paced, and this book will be coming out on August 8th. And the synopsis for this is, Looking Glass Sound is the newest, twisty, psychological horror novel from Catriona Ward, the internationally best-selling author of The Last House on Needless Street and Sundial. In a lonely cottage overlooking the windswept Maine coast, Wilder Harlow begins the last book he will ever write. It is the story of his childhood summer companions and the killer that stalked the small New England town. Of the body they found and the horror of the discovery echoing down the decades. Does this sound like The Body by Stephen King? Stand By Me? Anybody? Okay. So where was I? Of the body they found and the horror of that discovery echoing down the decades. And of Skye, Wilder's one-time best friend who stole his unfinished memoir and turned it into a lurid, best-selling novel, Looking Glass Sound. But as Wilder writes, the lines between memory and fiction blur. He fears he's losing his grip on reality when he finds notes hidden around the cottage written in Skye's signature green ink. Catriona Ward delivers another mind-bending and cleverly crafted tale about one man's struggle to come to terms with the terrors of his past before it's too late. Interesting. Okay. Definitely getting Stephen King vibes, the main setting. I wonder if this is Catriona Ward paying homage to King, but that does sound like something I want to read. It also, again, has that kind of inception of a thrilling story containing a thrilling writer. That's interesting. Catriona Ward's stuff is also never what it seems. It's always super twisty and turny, so I'm definitely interested to see what she does with that. All right. Next up is All Hallows by Christopher Golden. This is going to be one of the newest upcoming releases, or this is going to be one of the closest upcoming releases, so this comes out on January 24th of this month. And Christopher Golden wrote Road of Bones, which was it was a book I received in Nightworms this year, and I really enjoyed it. It was really interesting, and I liked his style, so I was definitely interested to read more from Christopher Golden, but that is the only thing that I have read from him thus far. But I also really liked the title of this book. That seems really interesting. And so the premise of the book says, with the 80s nostalgia of Stranger Things, this horror drama from New York Times bestselling author Christopher Golden follows neighborhood families and a mysterious lurking evil on one Halloween day. It's Halloween night, 1984, in Coventry, Massachusetts, and two families are unraveling. Up and down the street, horrifying secrets are being revealed. And all the while, mixed in with the trick-or-treaters of all ages, 4 children who do not belong are walking door to door, merging with the kids of Parmenter? I think it says of Parmenter. Merging with the kids of Parmenter Road. Children in vintage costumes with faded, eerie makeup. They seem terrified and beg the neighborhood kids to hide them away, to keep them safe from the cunning man. There's a small clearing in the woods now that was never there before, and a blackthorn tree that doesn't belong at all. These odd children claim that the cunning man is coming for them, and they want the local kids to protect them. But with families falling apart and the neighborhood splintered by bitterness, who will save the children of Parmenter Road? New York Times bestselling Bram Stoker award-winning author Christopher Golden is best known for his supernatural thrillers set in deadly, distant locales. But in this suburban Halloween drama, Golden brings the horror home. All Hallows, the one night when everything is a mask. Oh, this reminds me very much of Trick or Treat. I do remember reading this premise a couple months ago also when I first heard about this book. I love anything set on Halloween. I'm a little bummed that this is coming out in January because I do really like the premise of this book, so I probably will read it right around the time that it comes out. I definitely don't think I will wait until Halloween to read it, but that does sound great. Okay. So next up, we have A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher, which comes out on March 28th. Now, I was a big fan of T. Kingfisher's first 2 releases under that name. T. Kingfisher is a pen name, so she has written several other novels with a different name, but her horror-focused books are all under T. Kingfisher, and I was a big fan of her first 2 books, The Hollow Places and The Twisted Ones. Did not enjoy her 2022 release, What Moves the Dead, but I still like her writing, so I'm interested to see what this one is about. I don't believe this one is a reimagining, though. All of her other horror novels to date have been reimaginings of classic Gothic stories. I do not believe this one is, from what I remember. Let's see. And that comes out on March 28th. I don't remember if I said that. Okay, so it says, a haunting Southern Gothic from an award-winning master of suspense. A House with Good Bones explores the dark, twisted roots lurking just beneath the veneer of a perfect home and family. Mom seems off. Her brother's words echo in Sam Montgomery's ear as she turns onto the quiet North Carolina street where their mother lives alone. She brushes the thought away as she climbs the front steps. Sam's excited for this rare extended visit and looking forward to nights with just the 2 of them, drinking boxed wine, watching murder mystery shows, and guessing who the killer is long before the characters figure it out. But stepping inside, she quickly realizes home isn't what it used to be. Gone is the warm, cluttered charm her mom is known for. Now the walls are painted a sterile white. Her mom jumps at the smallest noises and looks over her shoulder even when she's the only person in the room. And when Sam steps back to clear her head, she finds a jar of teeth hidden beneath the magazine-worthy rose bushes, and vultures are circling the garden from above. To find out what's got her mom so frightened in her own home, Sam will go digging for the truth, but some secrets are better left buried. I'm so happy that this is going to be another modern setting. I think what I didn't like about What Moves the Dead was the lack of a contemporary setting. I think T. Kingfisher does a great job of creating like a small town contemporary setting. I loved that the most about The Hollow Places. I enjoyed it a lot in The Twisted Ones, and it felt very absent in What Moves the Dead. And I love like the Southern Gothic setting that T. Kingfisher has done in her previous novels, and I love the kind of family dynamics she likes to create. So this feels more akin to what I'm used to and enjoy from T. Kingfisher, and very, very far removed from What Moves the Dead. So excited for that one. Okay, next up is The Twisted Dead by Darcy Coates, which comes out on February 7th, 2023. This is the third book in the Gravekeeper series by Darcy Coates. I said this several times, I am not a huge fan of series, but I do love Darcy Coates, and I have thoroughly enjoyed the Gravekeeper series. So I'm very, very excited for this. I believe originally this was supposed to be a trilogy. Somebody mentioned to me recently that they think now it's going to be 5 books. So I'm not sure if this is the conclusion of this series or if it is just the smack dab middle. But we will find out, I guess. Okay. So again, this comes out on February 7th, and there might be slight spoilers in this if you have not read the Gravekeeper books 1 and 2. So it says, Kira is ready for her life to return to normal. Though to be fair, normal is a tall ask when your ability to see ghosts has landed you the job of groundskeeper in a small town cemetery. When Kira receives an invitation to dinner at Dane Crispin's crumbling ancestral estate, she knows she can't refuse. The last living descendant of the Crispin family is reclusive. Kira only met him once, on the night he tried to kill her. The mansion is steeped in history that is equal parts complicated and bloody. Kira senses the presence of restless spirits the moment she steps through its door, and Dane, waiting for her inside, wants to ask for her help. Okay, very interested in this. There's a lot of characters that have been kind of just mentioned in passing in the stories, in the series so far, that haven't really been super highlighted. I'm happy that book 2 highlighted a few of those characters, and it looks like book 3 is going to continue doing that. Very excited to see where this goes. Very excited to learn more about who Kira is. I feel like that's the big question that I get every time I read these books, and it just hasn't been answered at all. So excited to see what goes on with that. All right, next up is The Drift by CJ Tudor, which will be coming out on January 31st. I have read 2 books by CJ Tudor, The Chalk Man and The Burning Girls. The Burning Girls actually made it onto my top 10 list of 2022, so very excited to read more from CJ Tudor. I really like her writing style. I think she's really unique and original. She takes concepts that I feel like have been done several times and finds ways to reimagine them. And I just really, really have loved the kind of like murder mystery she's done that I've read thus far. So the synopsis for this is, 3 ordinary people risk everything for a chance at redemption in this audacious, utterly gripping novel of catastrophe and survival at the end of the world, from acclaimed author of The Chalk Man. Hannah awakens to carnage, all mangled metal and shattered glass. During a hasty escape from a secluded boarding school, her coach careened over a hillside road during one of the year's heaviest storms, trapping her inside with a handful of survivors, a brewing virus, and no way to call for help. If she and the remaining few want to make it out alive, with their sanity and secrets intact, they'll need to work together or they'll be buried alive with the rest of the dead. A former detective, Meg awakens to a gentle rocking. She is in a cable car suspended far above a snowstorm and surrounded by strangers in the same uniform as her, with no memory of how they got there. They are heading to a mysterious place known to them only as the Retreat. But when they discover a dead man among their ranks and Meg spies a familiar face, she realizes that there is something far more insidious going on. Carter is gazing out the window of the abandoned ski chalet that he and his ragtag compatriots call home. Together, they manage a precarious survival, manufacturing vaccines against a deadly virus in exchange for life's essentials. But as their generator begins to waver, the threat of something lurking in the chalet's depths looms larger, and their fragile bonds will be tested when the power finally fails, for good. The imminent dangers faced by Hannah, Meg, and Carter are each one part of the puzzle. Lurking in their shadows is an even greater threat. one that threatens to consume all of humanity. So this sounds like a lot for a 352-page book. I'm interested to see how this goes. This definitely seems to be the most complicated premise that I've read from CJ Tudor thus far, and definitely does not seem to be like kind of like a murder mystery like her other books are. Again, this seems very post-apocalyptic. So interested to see this because I have not read anything like this from CJ Tudor, so this could be fun. Okay, next up we have another Philip Fracassi book, and this is actually the book that I first heard about that made me really interested in wanting to read Philip Fracassi. I believe it was originally published in October 2021. I think it's being released in either June or July of this year. I'm not 100% sure. It's being re-released because I think it was just a limited release the first time. And this is Boys in the Valley. It has a 4.72 rating on Goodreads. So I read about this last year when I was doing my most anticipated reads of 2022 because I think this might have been originally scheduled for then and then got pushed back. And it just sounded so up my alley, and this is what really introduced me to this author. Again, I haven't read anything from him yet, but all of the premises for his books sound so interesting. So hopefully this is the year that I read Philip Fracassi. And the premise for this one is St. Vincent's Orphanage for Boys. Turn of the century in a remote valley in Pennsylvania. Here, under the watchful eyes of several priests, 30 boys work and learn and worship. They live their lives in a methodical way and get along despite different personalities and pasts. Peter Barlow, orphaned by a nighttime murder at his childhood home, has made a new life here. As he approaches adulthood, he has friends, a future, family. Then late one stormy night, a group of men arrive at their door, one of whom is badly wounded. His body covered with occult symbols carved into his flesh. Upon his death, an ancient evil is released that infests St. Vincent's and the children within. Soon, boys begin acting differently, forming groups, taking sides. Others turn up dead. Now Peter and those dear to him must choose sides of their own, each of them knowing their lives and perhaps their eternal souls are at risk. So that just sounds so interesting to me. I really can't wait to get my hands on that. Like I said, I'm going to hopefully read A Child Alone with Strangers sometime this month, and then hopefully Gothic shortly after that. So very, very excited for all of this Philip Fracassi. I really do hope I enjoy his writing. Okay, next up, this is Silver Nitrate by Silvia Moreno Garcia, and this comes out on July 18th. That's my birthday. It'll actually be my 30th birthday, y'all. Exciting. So Silvia Moreno Garcia is an author who I am interested in, but don't know if I love. I read Mexican Gothic. I thought it was unique. It does something that I really dislike in contemporary horror right now, but it was the first time I saw it, so I don't think I hated it as much as I hate now. Not going to say what that is because I don't want to ruin that book for anybody who has not read Mexican Gothic, but if you've read Mexican Gothic and been on my channel recently, I think you know what I'm talking about. And then I read her vampire novel, Certain Dark Things. I liked the concept of it. I hated the execution. I thought it had a lot of plot holes and strange kind of concerning moments in that novel, but I really, really enjoyed the world building in that book. So she's definitely somebody who I see potential in, but I don't know if I will continue reading her work if the rest of her books don't continue to click with me. I did pick up her like Gothic romance retelling of The Island of Dr. Moreau, but I have yet to read it. And obviously I have yet to read this, but I'm interested in this because I don't believe it's a reimagining of another book. But this is what the premise is. So it says, from the New York Times bestselling author of The Daughter of Dr. Moreau and Mexican Gothic comes a fabulous meld of Mexican horror movies and Nazi occultism. A dark thriller about the curse that haunts a legendary lost film and awakens one woman's hidden powers. Montserrat has always been overlooked. She's a talented sound editor, but she's left out of the boys' club running the film industry in 90s Mexico City. And she's all but invisible to her best friend, Tristan. A charming, if faded soap opera star, though she's been in love with him since childhood. Then Tristan discovers his new neighbor is the cult horror director, Abel Urrueta, and the legendary auteur claims he can change their lives. Even if his tale of Nazi occultists imbuing magic into highly volatile silver nitrate stock sounds like sheer fantasy. The magic film was never finished, which is why Urrueta, I'm so sorry, I know I'm saying that wrong, even though he swears his career vanished overnight. He is cursed. Now the director wants Montserrat and Tristan to help him shoot the missing scene and lift the curse. But Montserrat soon notices a dark presence following her, and Tristan begins seeing the ghost of his ex-girlfriend. As they work together to unravel the mystery of the film and the obscure occultist who once roamed their city, Montserrat and Tristan may find that sorcerers and magic are not only the stuff of movies. Oh, interesting. Okay, so this actually makes me really excited because I know for a fact that Silvia Moreno Garcia loves film and like old school film history. I read about that, I believe, at the end of certain Dark Things and maybe Mexican Gothic too, which would also explain probably why she wanted to do The Daughter of Dr. Moreau. I believe the film is also a very, very famous horror adaptation of the story. So that actually makes me really excited because I know that that is something that she is very passionate about as an author, so I can see this being almost like a passion project potentially. So I'm actually way more excited about that now that I know the premise of it, even if the premise seems a little confusing to me and not necessarily something that I would gravitate towards reading. The fact that I know that the author really enjoys the subject matter, I think definitely changes my mind on that a bit. Next up though, we have another Darcy Coates novel. Always. Darcy Coates just like cranks out novels. I think she had 3 last year. I love her. She writes so much so quickly and it's always so solid. Like I feel like she's really growing as an author, especially in 2022. She had From Below, which had a lot of body horror in it. She still had some of her cozier horror stuff with the Gravekeeper series, and then Gallows Hill was definitely a deviation from what I usually read from her, and I wasn't a fan of it, but I know a lot of people were, but it definitely was very different from her traditional like haunted house story. So always excited to see what Darcy Coates has. And it is called Dead of Winter, and it comes out July 11th, 2023. And I was about to make a comment about how I think it's really weird that she's releasing a winter story in the summer, but then I remembered that she lives in Australia where it is winter down there, so that actually makes a little bit more sense. According to Goodreads, 2 people have read this so far, and they have both given it 5 stars. That's always really nice. And the premise for this one, again, July 11th, 2023, the premise for this one. Ooh, that's Slurpee Day. That is free Slurpee Day, y'all. 7-Eleven. You can get free Slurpees and read some Darcy Coates. So it says, from best-selling author Darcy Coates come Dead of Winter, a remote cabin in the snowy wilderness thriller that will teach you to trust no one. There are 8 strangers, 1 killer, nowhere left to run. When Krista joins a tour group heading deep into the snowy expanse of the Rocky Mountains, she's hopeful this will be her chance to put the ghost of her past to rest. But when a bitterly cold snowstorm sweeps the region, the small group is forced to take shelter in an abandoned hunting cabin. Despite the uncomfortably claustrophobic quarters and rapidly dropping temperature, Krista believes they'll be safe as they wait out the storm. She couldn't be more wrong. Deep in the night, their tour guide goes missing, only to be discovered the following morning, his severed head impaled on a tree outside the cabin. Terrified and completely isolated by the storm, Krista finds herself trapped with 8 total strangers. One of them kills for sport, and they're far from finished. As the storm grows more dangerous and the number of survivors dwindles one by one, Krista must decide who she can trust before this frozen mountain becomes her doom. I am so excited for this. Oh my god. This sounds so good. I like that she's setting this in the Rocky Mountains. I've noticed that recently Darcy Coates has been given real locations for some of her stories. Most of them seem to just be like made up small towns and we don't know where. I always assume Australia. But From Below was set in, I believe, the Arctic Sea, and this is going to be in the Rocky Mountains. This is so cool, and this sounds like it's going to be more on the, like, for Darcy Coates, more extreme horror side. I don't think Darcy Coates is ever going to go into, like, full extreme horror, but From Below was a lot scarier and more intense than most of her books, so I'm really excited for that now. But again, it's being released in the summer, and it's going to be wintry, and I'll probably read it in the dead of summer. Okay, next up is The Angel Maker by Alex North. And that comes out on February 8th, 2023. Alex North wrote The Whisper Man, which I really, really enjoyed. Just kind of a classic, like, serial killer whodunit style story. I did not read his follow-up novel because I didn't hear the greatest of things, but I did enjoy The Whisper Man, so I'm excited to see what The Angel Maker is about. And so it says, a dark, suspenseful new thriller about the mysteries of fate, the unbreakable bond of siblings, and a notorious serial killer who was said to know the future. Growing up in a beautiful house in the English countryside, Katie Shaw lived a charmed life. At the cusp of graduation, she had big dreams, a devoted boyfriend, and a little brother she protected fiercely. until the day a violent stranger changed the fate of her family forever. Years later, still unable to live down the guilt surrounding what happened to her brother, Chris, and now with a child of her own to protect, Katie struggles to separate the real threats from the imagined. Then she gets the phone call. Chris has gone missing and needs his big sister once more. Meanwhile, Detective Lawrence Page is facing a particularly gruesome crime. A distinguished professor of fate and free will has been brutally murdered just hours after firing his staff. All the leads point back to two old cases: the gruesome attack on teenage Christopher Shaw and the despicable crimes of a notorious serial killer who, legend had it, could see the future. Ooh, I was so into this premise until it said that there might be a supernatural element. I don't know what it is with me and supernatural murder mysteries, but I don't think I like it. That's like, I don't mean this is like a spoiler for this book, so I'm kind of sorry if that's what it is, but like there's so much supernatural in The Outsider, especially in the second half by Stephen King, that I was just like, oh no, I was really hoping it was going to be rooted in something real and just like this crazy twist, but it just leaned heavily supernatural. And I did really enjoy that book. It's one of my favorite of King's newer releases, but I just remember being like really like, wait, what? When it took that supernatural turn, and I just read that with like Hidden Pictures and the latest Riley Sager novel. So I don't know how I feel about it. I feel like if I can't figure out the crime on my own, I don't know if I would necessarily want to read it. I don't know. I'm weird with that. But that is just me. Okay, so next up, I actually haven't read anything about this book, but I saw literally right before I was going to film this video that this was coming out, and I got really excited about it. And this is The Only One Left by Riley Sager, which will be coming out on June 20th, 2023. Now, I understand a lot of people are like iffy on Riley Sager. I personally love his writing. I think it's really fun and whimsical and weird, and it's always kind of over the top. And I feel like if you go in expecting all the twists and turns and blindsiding of Riley Sager, that you enjoy it a lot more than taking it at like a very serious face value, because I don't necessarily think they are. And I always have fun seeing if I can figure out the twists and turns, and the last book kind of threw me all over the place. That one was really strange. And then the one before that I figured out, but all of his others have completely blindsided me. So I always have a blast reading Riley Sager. So let's read the premise for this. I haven't read anything about this. So it says, best-selling author Riley Sager returns with a Gothic chiller about a young caregiver assigned to work for a woman accused of a Lizzie Borden-like massacre decades early. I am sold. I visited the Lizzie Borden house like this time last year. I'm stoked on this. I'm fascinated with that case. Let's continue. At 17, Lenora Hope hung her sister with a rope. Now reduced to a schoolyard chant, the Hope family murder shocked the Maine coast one bloody night in 1929. While most people assume 17-year-old Lenora was responsible, the police were never able to prove it. Other than her denial after the killing, she has never spoken publicly about that night, nor has she set foot outside Hope's End, the cliffside mansion where the massacre occurred. Stabbed her father with a knife, took her mother's happy life. It's now 1983, and home and health aide Kit McDeer arrives at a decaying Hope's End to care for Lenora after her previous nurse fled in the middle of the night. In her 70s and confined to a wheelchair, Lenora was rendered mute by a series of strokes and can only communicate with Kit by tapping out sentences on an old typewriter. One night, Lenora uses it to make a tantalizing offer. I want to tell you everything. It wasn't me, Lenora said, but she's the only one not dead. As Kit helps Lenora write about the events leading to the Hope family massacre, it becomes clear there's more to the tale than people know. But when new details about her predecessor's departure come to light, Kit starts to suspect Lenora might not be telling the complete truth, and that the seemingly harmless woman in her care could be far more dangerous than she first thought. Oh, I think that sounds so good. And I'm really excited to see what Riley Sager does with that. I hope there's nothing supernatural in this one, and I hope he goes back to just his weird, twisty, turny, all over the place storytelling. I really do enjoy Riley Sager. I think he's definitely a niche type of author. So I'm stoked on that. Okay, I have two more for you guys. I know this video is going on for so long, but obviously I had to include How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix, which was supposed to come out last year but got pushed back to early this year. That comes out on January 17th, and the premise for this one is Your past and your family can haunt you like nothing else. A hilarious and terrifying new novel from the New York Times bestselling author of the Final Girl Support Group. Every childhood home is haunted, and each of us are possessed by our parents. When their parents die at the tail end of the coronavirus pandemic, Louise and Mark Joyner are devastated, but nothing can prepare them for how bad things are about to get. The two siblings are almost totally estranged and couldn't be more different. Now, however, they don't have a choice but to get along. The virus has passed, and both of them are facing bank accounts ravaged by the economic meltdown. Their one asset, their childhood home. They need to get it on the market as soon as possible because they need the money. Yet before her parents died, they taped newspaper over the mirrors and nailed shut the attic door. Sometimes we feel like puppets, controlled by our upbringing and our genes. Sometimes we feel like our parents treat us like toys or playthings or even dolls. The past can ground us, teach us, and keep us safe. It can also trap us and bind us and suffocate the life out of us. As disturbing events stack up in the house, Louise and Mark have to learn that sometimes the only way to break away from the past, sometimes the only way to sell a haunted house is to burn it all down. I've been talking about this book for a year now. I'm very excited for that. I wasn't thrilled with Final Girl Support Group, but I do tend to really enjoy Grady Hendrix's like comedic style of true horror, so very excited to see that, and I think the premise is real cheeky. And then the other book that I did have on my list last year that also got pushed to this year is Don't Fear the Reaper by Stephen Graham Jones. It is the sequel to My Heart is a Chainsaw, which was one of my top 10 books of 2021. Really did enjoy that book, which is weird because I normally do not like Stephen Graham Jones's writing. And this book comes out on February 7th. Again, this is a sequel, so it may contain spoilers to My Heart is a Chainsaw. Please be warned. But it says December 12th, 2019. Jane returns to the rural lake town of Prufrock the same day as convicted Indigenous serial killer Dark Mill South escapes into town to complete his revenge killings in this riveting sequel to My Heart is a Chainsaw from New York Times bestselling author Stephen Graham Jones. 4 years after her tumultuous senior year, Jade Daniels is released from prison right before Christmas when her conviction is overturned. But life beyond bars takes a dangerous turn as soon as she returns to Prufrock. Convicted serial Dark Mill South, seeking revenge for 38 Dakota men hanged in 1862, escapes from his prison transfer due to a blizzard, just outside of Prufrock, Idaho. Dark Mill South's reunion tour began on December 12, 2019, a Thursday, 36 hours and 20 bodies later on Friday the 13th. It would be over. Don't Fear the Reaper is the page-turning sequel to My Heart is a Chainsaw from New York Times bestselling author Stephen Graham Jones. That was so redundant. This is definitely like two different synopses have been pasted here, and then Goodreads just didn't remember to edit it. Anyway, I'm excited for this. Again, I don't usually vibe with Stephen Graham Jones's writing, but I am very interested to see the sequel because I enjoyed the first book so much. I've also heard rumors that Todd Keisling will be releasing a novel called Revelation Road. I don't have any other info on that. I do know that they're re-releasing Devil's Creek through Cemetery Dance Publications as well. I really enjoyed that book, so definitely excited to read more from Todd Keisling. I believe They Lurk by Ronald Malfi is another short story collection that he will be releasing, even though I think it may have been released in like the late 2010s originally. I think it's getting a reprinting. Tim Meyer has teased that he will be releasing a book called Lacuna's Point. I have heard nothing beyond that. I have also heard rumors that Clay McLeod Chapman will be releasing a novel called What Kind of Mother at some point, and I have heard nothing else beyond that. Anyways, I know this is a very, very long-winded video. Hopefully I'll be able to edit down some of my rambling so it's not like another 35-minute video, but can't promise that. Anyways, that is all that I have for you guys today. I might make a second follow-up video if more releases are announced probably like 6 months from now. So be on the lookout for that if you are interested. Anyways, as always, I post every Monday and Thursday, sometimes on Saturdays. And if you enjoyed these videos, please hit the like and subscribe buttons down below. And I will catch you all in the next one. Mwah.